Hi, Captain Mark, Riverside Marine. I'm going to go through a Simrad Go 9 multi-function device that includes charting, fish finder, engine, instrument gauges, trip intelligence, sun and moon information, tide information, waypoints, routes. So let's get started here with the charting program. So from the home screen, I'll touch the chart and we get our chart here, okay? As you can see down here, the icon of the boat that we are currently sitting on. I'm going to change one thing right here just to make it easier for me to display. So I should change the orientation to north up, okay? That way north is up all the time. When I get back to moving the boat, I will put it on heading up because I like to be able to see where I'm going, not where north is. But it's much more stable for me to do what I'm doing here today. At any rate, so here's the icon of your boat, okay? And you can see this particular model has a whole lot of detail. You see the pilings on the piers. You see our neighbors' piers, big pier system, smaller piers. This line right here is known as a track, okay? This is where one of our sales guys just took a customer out for a sea trial, so it says today's activity track. If that activity took place yesterday or the day before, it would say July whatever and what time you made that track. Now, these tracks are great because you can always find your way home, but you'll find that going in and out of the same marina or ramp, you'll get so many tracks on the screen that you don't know really what you just did because of so many tracks. So you would go home and go to waypoints and go to tracks and delete those tracks, okay? But it won't delete today's track. So you can always get home, you can get rid of all the other tracks, but you always have your tracks to be able to get home with. You've got chartware from the Canadian border to Key West. So you've got, wherever you take your boat on the East Coast, you'll have the chartware for it. I set up the side panel the way I like it to be set up. It can be changed very easily. I'll show you how to do that. But our first reading there, SOG, speed over ground, and we're not moving, but margin of error is 0.2 miles an hour, so it's showing 2 miles an hour. Our depth, if we were in the water, we're on a lift right now, it shows the depth below the boat, our fuel rate of use in gallons per hour, our fuel in the tank, the engine RPMs, if it were running, it would show the RPMs, the engine trim, up and down, okay, and the engine hours. So I can keep track of some of the vital things on the engine and my speed and depth just by looking at that panel there. If I go home and go to pick an engine gauge, okay, or engine screen, I've got my speed over the ground there, my RPMs here, what gear I'm in, how much fuel I have, another fuel indicator there, my engine trim, the voltage from the battery, and yet I still have everything on the side panel here. So you can get a lot of information on your engine, and if you hit this Mercury icon right there, you can get your cooling temp, okay? You can get oil pressure, trip intel, all that kind of thing. So you can access a lot of stuff through this glass screen on your boat. The fish finder is not going to show us a whole lot now because we are up in the air, okay? We're not in the water, but this would show our depth, the water temperature, and the frequency we are on. And for the Chesapeake Bay and in similar bodies of water, you want to be on 200 kilohertz. That's correct for water that's not 800 feet deep, okay? This would show us whatever fish or objects are on the bottom if it were in the water and we were running. It does scroll at a certain speed, doesn't matter if you're going 40 or you're stopped, but it's constantly running. Going back home again, you have a tidal memory bank, okay? So if I touch this, it's going to give me all the locations nearby, okay, within miles. It shows you when the high tides are, when the low tide was, and the next low tide is going to be. You can change the date. If I go back to tides again, you'll see it will give you a list of all the nearby stations, so you can pick and choose. Wherever you are in the U.S., you can find out what the local tides are. Going back home again, you have alarms. So you can set an alarm for a whole lot of different things, but I would recommend you don't. Pick a couple things that might be interest to you or make your navigation a lot more simple. Shallow water alarm, I hit that button right there. It's going to go off at 6 feet. On Back River where we are, it's going to go off a lot, so I would change that to something a little more appropriate for this boat in this area. I'd have the shallow water alarm set for 3 feet. So if it goes off, you can decide whether you want to proceed on your course that you're currently on, or do something a little bit different. Trip and tell. When you leave the dock, this system, this multi-function display, will throw a screen up on the glass that says, do you want to start a new trip, continue your trip? Okay. If you start a new trip or continue a trip, you're going to get this information here totaled up for you. How far you went, how long it took for you to get there, what your average speed was, your economy in miles per gallon, how much fuel you use. And I think this is a great number right there. For older boats, analog boats, carbureted boats, you would not generally not get that number about how much fuel you use. It's very important to keep an eye on things like that. So I can close that back down. You've also got, let me get this closed here, come on. I got sun and moon stuff. Almost no moon, plenty of sun. You change the date, it'll show you the phases of the moon if that interests you. It's all built into the unit there. This is your on and off button. This particular boat is rigged so if you turn the key on, the ignition on, it'll turn the Simrad on automatically. So if your boat's not geared for that, you press and hold this button to get it started. Press and hold it to get it turned off. Okay. If you just press and hold it for a second, you'll get this screen here. Okay. You can deal with the brightness. You can get rid of the instrument bar. You can do a lot of different things. Change the night mode. Change all the lettering to red instead of white, so you're not going to lose your night vision. So there's a lot going on with this system here. Let me change that night vision back to daytime mode. See, it just changed colors. You get rid of the instrument bar. You can do a lot of stuff. That's your basic Simrad Go 9 system. All right, we're going to do a routing puzzle here. So I want to get my boat down the river. I am not familiar with the river, so I'm going to run a route beforehand so I can make a safe passage to my destination. So I go home and I go to waypoints and I go to routes. Okay, there's no routes on the screen as yet. I want to do a new route. I want to create it on the chart. Okay, so here's where my boat is. Okay, and I want to go down the river. So I'm going to start my route right there, where that little green circle is. As I move down the river, it's going to connect these little green circles and start a route. So you got to be careful. Make sure you're taking yourself on a pathway that's not have obstructions or shallow water. But I think we'll be okay. I've been down this river 1,000 times. I'm going to stop right here. You can barely see a green arrow that's pointing upriver. Okay, that's telling it the tide is coming in. Just a little aside there. And it shows you what the predicted tidal speed would be, 0.3 miles an hour. Okay, now back to the route. So I got all this going on. I'll go back right down to the end of the river, right there. I want to save that route, and I can call it something. I can change the name to Route 1 or Route from Riverside, Route 2, Green Channel Marker, whatever I want to call it, I can call it. And I go enter. Now I have a route somewhere. Okay. Now the route is going to appear on my chart. Let it load here for a second. It's a little tangled up with the sea trial track that we showed you earlier, but you can see the route clearly enough. Okay, so it's going to lie there until you get rid of it. Okay, to start a route, I've already have the route in place there, as we mentioned. I'm going to go home, back to routes. Okay, that route is already illuminated. I can touch it if I have several, and I can touch it like that and go start. I can start going in the river or going out of the river. In this case, I'm going to go out of the river. So what happens when you do that, it illuminates and makes more visible that route. Okay, and there's other things you can do with this route on the side panel. As I mentioned earlier, I can make some changes here that will help me know how far I'm going to go, what time I'm going to get there, all that kind of thing. So I'm going to press this button, this right here, this engine hours. I don't really want that right now. I want navigation, and it's on navigation tab. I open that up. I can change my number there to distance to destination. So it's now 6.46 miles. I could also get rid of trim or fuel rate or whatever, and I can find out my distance to the next waypoint, so you know how far it is to your next turning point. You can add a whole lot of stuff to this side panel that will help you navigate. So if I stop navigating, okay, if I go to menu and go to navigation and hit cancel, it stopped navigating, so it's not telling me how far I might go to get to where I'm going, because you don't have an active route. But the route is always going to lie there, so that can be helpful. You don't have to illuminate it. It's always there. But in this case, since it's not really a real route, I'm going to go home, go to waypoints, go to routes, and delete that route. So it's all gone. Nothing left there but the previously laid down tracks from today.